Hi, welcome guys. Welcome to a new video. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about top 50 interview question for a backend developer for C Sharp .NET Core. So in this topic, I have covered almost 50 the top most questions which are being asked by any of the interviewer, and if you people can go through all those 50 questions, so I can guarantee you that you can be succeeded in your interview. So before starting it, let's give me some agenda for this topic. So I have bifurcated this in three sections, starting from the beginning, then beginner questions, then would be the intermediate questions, and then would be the experience questions. So these three sections I have bifurcated among them with respect to questions, and if you cover all these three areas, then it would be covered all the interview questions whatever the interviewer is being asking to you. So let's get started. So first of all, the first thing which comes to the mind is what actually the ASP.NET Core is, because I'm emphasizing on the .NET Core in this topic. So most of the questions will be related to .NET Core. So the first question or the first thing which will come into the mind is what actually the .NET Core is. So the .NET Core is an open source and is it's platform independent a framework, I would say, that has been created by Microsoft. It is not the upgradation of simple .NET. It is redeveloped, I would say. So the .NET Core can run on the in the Windows environment, can run on the Linux environment, in the Mac environment. So it is totally cross platform, so any application built on any of the environment can work on the other environments as well. So that is the beauty of .NET Core, and it is much more faster than the other frameworks available so far. So its speed, its modularity, its scalability, these are the core benefits or core things which distinguish .NET Core over the other languages. So top of that, these overviews of our .NET Core, I have created a bunch of questions so that you can go through them one by one, and then we can finalize. So as mentioned in my introduction, so I have distributed or I have bifurcated in three sections. So I'm starting with the beginner questions. The first question, which I already covered, that would be the explain ASP.NET Core. So you can tell that ASP.NET Core is a modern open source and the web framework for building the cross-platform web application and APIs. So it is used for both the web application and APIs. It is much more lighter than the other frameworks available, and it can run on the Windows, Linux, and the Mac OS. And the most important thing is it has unified MVC and Web API. Previously, Web API was built separately, or they can be treated separately, and the MVC can be treated separately. But in ASP.NET Core, both can be unified in a single model. A single application can have MVC and Web API in the same manner, and it is making the flexible. I mean, definitely, if we are merging them or unifying them, then they can be used anywhere in the web, mobile, or even the AOT applications can use the .NET Core application. And on top of that, it is, I would say, have the extensive documentation available on .NET Core. Whatever you can ask, Microsoft is giving them in their learning website, or the other so many materials are also available from where we can get the details or get anything whatever we wanted. So to answer it, it is cross-platform application. It can work on all the environments. It is lightweight, modular, extensible, and the top of that, MVC and web APIs can can unify in the .NET Core. So that would be the answer from your side. And then the question would be to explain the key differences between the ASP.NET Core and simple ASP.NET. So the key differences I have figured it out here, and I can tell them one by one, but you need to name them while the interviewer is asking to you for these questions. So platform ASP.NET Core is cross-platform, whereas the ASP.NET is Windows only. Application can only work in the Windows, they cannot work in the Linux or Mac for the ASP.NET Core. Framework size, the .NET Core is modular and lightweight, whereas the ASP.NET is a larger and more complex. So many DLs are there, so many things are there. But as far as the framework concerned for ASP.NET, that is lightweight. Performance wise, generally faster and more efficient, and ASP.NET Core, it takes some time to load first time, and definitely due to the larger side is larger size, its performance is bit bit slower than that of the ASP.NET Core. So architecture is built on .NET Core runtime, and whereas ASP.NET itself is built on .NET framework. So the core is on .NET Core runtime, whereas the simple ASP not that is built on the .NET framework. And model view controller is integrated with the web API. I mean, it is uniform. Web API and MVC can have in the same application, whereas in ASP.NET it has a separate framework and a web API. If you talk about the configuration, it is more flexible and streamlined. We have app setting over there. We can have all those type of configuration available there, and we can use them wherever we want it. But in ASP.NET, we have web.config file and is XML based, and the configuration is complex as compared with ASP.NET Core, because it has JSON file, app setting.json file, and where we can put everything. But on the ASP.NET, we are using web API and it is XML based, and whenever a tag is closed or not closed or overwritten, and so many things are there. And talk about the open source, .NET Core is open source, whereas the ASP.NET has the primary license. This should be there, and it is primarily closed source with some of the open source. Some components are open source, not the fully. Microsoft support fully support for .NET Core, as I mentioned. If you go to the Microsoft.Learning website, so everything is available there. But ASP.NET, they have the support, but not up to that mark which .NET Core is having. And then the suitable for everything which is modern application, cloud development, microservices, whatever it is needed, we can use the .NET Core. That can be the question where we can use the .NET Core. So we can use in web application, cloud deployment, and in the microservices. It is provided everywhere. So as far as the ASP.NET Core is concerned, it is used for the legacy application, Windows specific deployments only. So that was the main differences between .NET Core and a simple .NET. The third question comes is describe the role of the startup class. So the startup class is the starting point in .NET Core. If you look into the .NET Core project, there is a startup class. In the startup class, we have all the configuration available there, all the services, all the database related thing, everything is configured in the startup class. So all the configuration, dependency injections, whatever things is needed for our project, that is being described in the startup class. So that is a much important question, and that can be asked, that what is the role of the startup class. So startup class, you can tell it has all the configuration, all the dependency injection, database related stuff, everything. Even entity framework is also configured here. I mean, all the authentications would be configured there. So it is a much more important question. You should know that. Then comes explain the dependency injection. So dependency injection, as is a self-explanatory, so is a design pattern that allow you to inject the dependencies into your code at a runtime. So one thing is we can call all the classes one by one, instantiate them, and then use them. The other way around is we can mention there in a startup class and can use wherever we need it. So dependency injection is a core built-in functionality of .NET Core. So what we have to do is we just need to put our classes inject them, or I mean in startup class we can register them and we can inject in them anywhere. So the built-in DI container manage the creation and the lifetime of these dependencies. We don't need to create the an instantiate class again and again. So this means your code doesn't need to create or manage them directly. .NET Core is managing them by itself. What are the benefits of ASP.NET Core? Now, there comes the benefit. So, why we choose? It can be asked why we choose the .NET Core over the ASP.NET. So this question can come in two ways. So you can answer it. It is cross-platform. It can work on all the environments. It is lightweight and performant. So it is a more I would say lighter than all the other application, and it can unify the APIs. It can have the UI API, and it can use a flexible approach, I would say. So unify APIs are there. That is a big I would say feature of that. Modular and testable, easy to customize and test. We unit testing is automatically be given, and it is more modular approach, and we can test them module wise. So it is also a big feature of that. The cloud friendly, integrates seamlessly with the cloud application like Azure. So we have all the facilities available. We have all the NIGIT packages available. We have all the provision available for the cloud application to work with the .NET Core. So it is a cloud friendly application. So blazingly fast, it is much more faster because it's lightweight, loading time is slower, and that also Microsoft has worked much more on the optimization. So it is much more faster than the other application. Open source and community driven. So it is open source. Everything is free for that. And the other thing is, the all the support is available from the community. Everything is available. So if you feel something to ask something, you can ask the community, or you can search it. And it is a open source. There is nothing we have to have in terms of license. So it is a much more, I would say, have the edge over the all other frameworks. So these are the benefits of .NET Core. Then comes the explain the request processing pipes in ASP.NET Core. So in legacy application, in ASP.NET application, you might have heard the life cycles or request cycle, that how it works. I mean, life cycle is something else. So that is what I'm saying. So request processing, how it happens in .NET Core. So in .NET Core, we have startup class, as I mentioned previously. So in the startup class, we have middleware concept. So middleware is a series of modular components called the middleware. So those are the component which are responsible for all type of these requests which are coming. So it runs in the sequence. So for example, we have middleware of authentication, we have middleware of Serilog, we have middlewares of Swagger, for example. So it is in a sequence. So the requests come in a sequence. Middleware runs in the sequence. Once the request would be there might be so many other things we can do. We can authenticate, we can log in, we can route it. So the HTTP request is being passed to the middlewares, and it run in the sequence. So once this question will be asked, you can tell the middleware structure that how the middleware runs and how the requests are coming and executed. Okay, the next question would be, what is the difference between App.Run and App.Use? So I have given some of the differences between these two. So let me elaborate them. So the purpose is App.Run, it adds the terminal middleware delegates to the pipeline. So once we add using the App.Run, then the termination of middleware is being added. But if you use the App.Use, it adds the non-terminal middleware, mean it can move to the next middleware. But if you use the App.Run, it will be terminated. There is a one difference. Execution, the processes the request and ends the pipeline. As I mentioned in the previous feature, it terminate a request, so it doesn't move to the next request. But whereas in the App.Use, processes the request and passes to the next middleware in the pipeline. What is the use case? So suitable for simple application where further no execution is required, we can use app.run. But wherever we use an application which has complex functionality and need to move to the next step in that level, we need to have app.use. Examples, I have put some of the examples here. App.run and simple async is there, and it is just writing the response back. But for the use, we can have app.use authentication, app.use authorization, app.use swagger. So many other uses are there. A result, it sends the response directly to the client. I mean, once we use the app.run, direct message would be given to the client. But if you use the app.use, it processes and the request result, after the request, the result is being passed to the next middleware. Maybe that the next middleware need to do something on that result. So in this case, the result will be passed to the next middleware. Flexibility, it is limited, and it only handle one request, and it is more flexible, and it allows the chaining multiple middleware component, one middleware to another to the next, and so on and so forth. So it is more flexible. The testability can be challenging to test due to the termination. I mean, once the middleware is terminated, we cannot debug it, we cannot test it properly. But it is easier that it isolate the testing. I mean, easier to test in the isolation, as it is a part of a large pipeline. So one pipeline result can be monitored while sending it to the another, and so on and so forth. So it is more testable as compared with the app.run. That was a difference between these two. The next question is, what is a request delegate and how is it used? So request delegate is a function that processes and handle an incoming HTTP request. As I mentioned previously, all the HTTP requests are coming to the pipelines. So in the same manner, it can be asked that the how the request delegates and how is used. So it is used between the middleware of the pipeline, which is essentially a series of middleware component that once HTTP request is coming, it can perform one thing and then move to the next and then move to the next request, and then it would be terminated in the last pipeline. So the delegate, a request delegate, is being processed using the pipelines. That would be the appropriate answer. Then describe the host in the app, ASP.NET Core application. So we discussed startup class, but with the startup class, we also have the program.cs class. In the program.cs class, we have a host there, the builder, host node builder, and these type of things would be there. So we need to describe what that is doing, or what are the detail of the host. So I have bulleted some of the functionality of the host. One of them is a configuration, read and parse the application setting and environment variable. So in program.css, you can read the configuration, and that configuration should reside in the app setting, and host can read it. Dependency injections create and manage the lifetime of dependencies needed by the application, that also done by the host. Logging can be done over there. We can have the logging, serial log, or the other logging that can be done using the host. Live time management, the start, run, and stop, when the application would be started, when it would be paused, and once it would be stopped. So that is also the part of the host. Hosting environments provide the information about the environment your application runs in. So that information is also in a hosting, or also in a host. Sorry. Web server integration, manage the web server used to serve your application, that is also being done by the host. So these are the bulleted points which you should know that what the host is doing. And then the hosted service enable background tasks to run alongside your application. So there can be so many other background jobs, the background tasks can be run, so that is also being monitored or done by the host. So that would be the answer for that. Explain how the configuration work in the ASP.NET Core and reading value from the app setting.json. So all the configuration are being done in the app setting. For example, we have connection string, we have any key value pair would be there. We can have logging over there, we can have the Azure configuration available there, so all those things would be in the app setting, but we need to read them. So while reading them, we have to have the I configuration interface injected, so it is automatically be there. We don't need to configure it, we just need to inject in our constructor, and the rest of the things would be there. So what we have to do is we just need to inject that I configuration, and from there we can read it. So to read that, we can use the get value, and inside the value here we have to provide the which type of value we are getting. So I have example for that, let me show you. So for example, this is a controller, and this is a read-only property I have provided. I configuration variable is over there, and that I am passing in the controller, and it is being initiated. So once it is being initiated in the constructor, we can use it. So you can see that the configuration dot get value, as I mentioned in last before this, so it should be get value, and then the value type, for example, it is a string type, and we are getting the connection string, and then the default connection string can have default connection string, have dev connection string, so many other things. So what we can do is we can name it, and after the colon we can get whatever the connection string we wanted to get it. But the beauty is I configuration is the configuration interface which is being used to getting the configuration from app.setting. So that would be the appropriate answer. How does the ASP.NET Core handle the static files serving? So static files are those files which can reside in our application, and those don't need to do anything. For example, a PDF file, a image file, or any other file which is staying there, but we wanted it to be open in our application. So these type of questions can be asked you. So what answer you are going to tell is all those type of static files should reside in www root, and then the middleware intercepts requests for these files and drive them directly to the client. So first we need to put them in www root, and then in the middleware we need to configure only the static file, then it would be available here. See, this is how I have done it. So this is my image I put in www root, and this is my file, my starting file, for example program file, and here I have used, because nowadays it has been merged in one file, so startup file or program file, where you can use the app.use static file middleware. So all the static files can be read using the use static file, but they need to be put in www root, because this is the direct directory which is pointing to the static file. That can be a good question as well, because there is a bit tricky question. And the next question is the session and state management option in the ASP.NET Core. So in as previously in ASP.NET, we also have the session. We also using the section previously, but the sessions are also being used in the ASP.NET Core. The session and the state management refer to the technique to storing and maintaining the data across the multiple user requests. One request can have a data, and the other request that need the data, definitely it should be stored somewhere. So that is a state management or a session. So that can be a user specific data or application wide that data can be used. Or session state can be can use the cookies to track the users, while other options like caching databases or can hold the global state. For example, we can cache a data, and that cache can be on Redis, or there are other so many other caching mechanism we can use it, or we can store in the database. There can be a session, because session can be in proc and out proc. We can store the session in the application or outside the application. So if it is outside the application, so it would be out proc and can be stored in the database. So the same approach is being used in .NET Core. Choosing the right approach depends upon the type of the persistence need. Mean whatever what type of data you needed, you need to use the appropriate approach, whether need to store in the application or whether store outlook in other storages like caching or databases. So that can be explained like this. Okay, the next question is, can ASP.NET application can run in the Docker? Docker containers are the container. Let me give you some insight on that. So those are the containers where all the dependent things are being stored as an image. Mean if you wanted to deploy an application and that application has so many runtime or DLLs, so we can pack them in an image and store in the Docker, and that Docker can be deployed anywhere in any environment can be deployed. So that can be the question. So can this application be deployed through the Docker? So the answer is yes, because it is lightweight and portable, and it is scalability and isolation is there, microservices architecture is there, or simplified deployment is there. So yes, we can have the .NET Core application, and that can be run with the container due to these flexible features. Describe the model binding in ASP.NET Core. So if you work in MVC previously, or if you know that is not the case, but definitely if once we're getting a data and that data need to be passed from front end to the back end. So these type of things are done through the model binding. So model binding is the thing in which we create a class, and that class is binding to our input, and once the data is put in that input, and we are getting in the backend. So in the same manner, .NET Core is providing the same mechanism. We can create a class, a model class, and that model class is getting the data from the front end, and then we can use it wherever it is needed. The next question is validation. So that model validation can also be done, because we cannot do the garbage in and garbage out. Definitely there should be, for example, email is coming, so email should be in an appropriate way. And if you're getting a name, it should not be a vague name in using these special character, these type of things. So those are the validation processes which we need to follow. So in the same manner, validation of all those all those models are also being provisioned in .NET Core. But how we are doing is we are using the iValidator object, and that iValidator object validate. And once the validation is done, because in the model we can annotation or provide the required field annotation, we can provide the email, we can provide the so many other annotation that this model or this property can get this type of data. If that is not being getting the same manner, it would be not validated, and you cannot send it to the backend. So the ivalidatable object would be used there, and is valid is a method in which if all the validation is passed and we are getting it true, then at that level we are sending it to the backend, otherwise it would not be sending. There are so many other libraries also available which can do that. One of them is Fluent Validator. We can create rules over there that data cannot be null, the length should be like this, or these type of things we can use with the Fluent Validator. So you can give that answer to the interviewer as well. Then comes the explain ASP.NET Core MVC architecture. MVC is the same as that, coming from the older versions as well. So model, view, controller. So model getting all those type of information to pass from view to controller. View is the interface, front end interface where the things are being displayed, and then controller is a backend which is getting the data, performing all those operations over there and sending it back to the database, or sending the data. So the controller is controlling everything, model is passing the data, and view is the UI part of the application. Okay, explain the component of the ASP.NET Core. MVC has explained model represent the data and logic of the application, view responsible for presenting the user interface, and the controller is acting, doing all the jobs of business related things or whatever the operations are we needed to do. So controller is doing that. Then comes the concept of describe the concept of view model in ASP.NET Core MVC development. So in MVC development, the concept of view model plays a crucial role, I would say. So because the view model is a model which is getting all the information, passing it somewhere in the view or the backend, because view model possesses all those information which all those data which is required to a particular view. So view model is a very crucial part. It is same as that it is not the two-way binding, I would say, as the Angular is doing, but in the similar manner, I would say it is doing. So view model is the model which is getting the data and displaying on the view. So unlike the domain model, they are not directly tied to the database or the business logic, because there was model, view model, controller model are there, but the view model is something else. It is not specifically the model, same model. It doesn't have any logic or logic in sense it doesn't have to be directly bind to the database. So they will get data from somewhere, from the controller, and pass it to the front end. So that is the view model in MVC. Explain how the routing works in the ASP Node application. So routing, definitely we have to have some routing over there, that how the MVC application look like. For example, it should be your port, and then the home, and then slash index, or the other routing can also be applied. So URL pattern need to be configured in the middleware, so that is a routing. So there are two type of routing. One routing we can configured in the startup file, as I mentioned, that the pattern would be controller in controller name, then action. For example, action is add, update, delete, and then a parameter should be, which should be integer variable, like we are passing value 1, and it will get for example, the client ID having the 1, it will get that data. So that is what we have to have in our application configured for map controller route. There is also another routing that we can provide in front of our controller, in front of our action, that is a route based attribute. So we can provide that the route should be student slash all. So once your endpoint would be configured, or endpoint would be coming to you, so it should be API slash student slash all. So these type of routing can also be provided there. So that's all for now.